All right, we are live. This is Attorney Vince Davis, and this is The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Ms. Deidre Payne from Orange County, California, Westminster. How are you, Ms. Payne?
Good, thank you.
And all the way across the country, we have our next co-host, Mr. Darren Guy. Mr. Darren Guy, how are you in Maine?
We're all right. We're surviving this hurricane. It's good enough to have the internet up for me to broadcast for it. So we're doing all right.
So you're actually going through a hurricane right now?
Yeah, as we speak. It's almost over, but yeah, as we speak, the hurricane's hitting us right outside these walls.
Wow. You couldn't show us? Be outside for once?
Well, it looks pretty weak. So I wanted to. I had said that earlier. I'm like, I wanted it to be like torrential, and I was going to do that from up there, but it would be a laughing stock, as most things are. So, like $1 million sounds and hurricanes now.
you could be like a CNN reporter with your microphone, your rain hoodie on.
Yep.
We might get a lot more people to view the show.
Well, we got PapSap now, so.
Oh, and our special guest, Mr. PapSap, aka Christopher. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine, sir. How are you?
Good. Where are you coming from?
It's great state of Tennessee.
Oh, Connie regularly.
You guys had a guy that was co-host last night, and he actually is from Gaston County, North Carolina, where my son lives. Didn't get his name, but I'd like to get his name is Mike?
Mike Bartz, yeah.
Mike Bart, I'm going to write that down. Bart, B-A-R-T?
B-A-R-T-Z, I think.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to write that down. And
Mike is very famous in his parts.
Well,
yeah, he's watching this right now.
Good.
He's watching it right now. He's getting so excited that you're mentioning this name.
He can't even get to his keyboard fast enough to type.
I want to buy this man a beer. I'm coming over because my son has a DVPO hearing Monday, and we'll get into that here in a second. But I've got to come back over from Tennessee to North Carolina to try to straighten stuff out and figure out what the hell's going on. I just came back from last week having to do the exact same thing. We beat the criminal charges in my son's case, but now we've still got to overturn this DVPO, and we're trying to find a good civil dependency attorney that can help my son in this case. And because he's from that area, he's going to know who the best attorneys are. So we're going to really be leaning on him to maybe point us in the right direction of somebody that will actually fight for my son and possibly turn the tables on this thing. So what would you like to know? What can I've got 1,000 questions to ask. And first of all, let me say this right here. I only found you guys after about a week or so ago, and I want to thank you for what you're doing online. This is, I don't know if you guys are religious or not, but I look at this as you doing the Lord's work. I really do. This is a ministry as much as the gospel, preaching the gospel is, Vince. And I want to thank you for the labors that you have, that you guys are going through to inform parents and help bring transparency to a system that is beyond the realm, the scope of understanding of most people, because it's just not taught in school. And I'm pretty familiar with the laws of the state of Tennessee, but the laws of North Carolina, and from state to state, it's different. And I understand that, but there's general principles that should apply pretty much from state to state with regard to due process. What I'm finding is whenever you fall into the jaws of the juvenile justice system, and when it involves CPS, a lot of what traditionally you would think of as due process rights go out the window. And my son has been denied due process, I feel like, and has no chance of discovery, no access to the kids. It's been 10 months. I know that the court does not have jurisdiction because the initial DVPO, number one, was not sworn to. There's nothing within the four corners of that document that said Mom ever raised her right hand and swore to any of the allegations that she made that were all based on hearsay of the kids. My son is alleged with 2 counts of criminal child abuse or misdemeanor child abuse. We were able to defeat that because there was no marks. There was no, Mom didn't take them to the emergency room. They complained, the oldest one complained about Dad choking him, and that didn't happen at all. And what we really believe is going on is that Mom is engaged in a campaign of parental alienation, and she undermines father's ability to discipline his kids in his own home. They come over, they're mouthy, they lack discipline. My son is a honorably discharged, decorated United States Marine, just retired from the Marine Corps. He's medically discharged, but he's got an honorable discharge, and he maintains his house. I mean, he keeps his stuff straight. He expects obedience and good order in his own home. He's not nearly as severe in disciplining the kids as I would be, but it's his own home. It's his own space. He loves the kids a whole lot, but he does not allow them to rear up against him and puff up their chest and ball up their fist and tell him how he's going to run his own home. And that's what he was dealing with that day. But he doesn't spank his children. He doesn't even really corporally discipline them. He is in trouble because he made them hug each other. The boys could not keep their hands off each other. They were constantly hitting each other in the back of the head, flicking each other on the ears, and doing the kind of things that brothers will do when they're in the home. And he told them, keep your hands to yourselves, stop picking on your little brother, this or that or whatever else. And when they couldn't stop doing that, he said, okay, fine. If you can't keep your hands off of each other, you're going to put your hands on each other and you're going to hug it out. So the discipline that he imposed on them initially was for them to stand there and hold each other in a warm embrace for 5 minutes or so, right? Nothing abusive about that, I would think. Uncomfortable for the boys, yes, but that was the discipline. I thought it was creative. Well, about halfway through that, the oldest one, who's 13, decides he's done. He's not going to do that anymore. He puffs out his little man chest and balls up his fist and starts telling Dad how the cow chews the cud. So Dad takes hold of him, separates him from the situation, marches him down the hall, puts him against the wall, and gets about 2 inches from his face and tell him, to tell him, this is my house. You're the child. I'm the parent. This is what's going to happen. You will obey me. For that, the boys go home to mom. Mom runs to CPS, makes all these allegations that he's choked the children out. State puts on its case. They called 6 witnesses. The boys all testified to the same basic stuff. And after the state had called mom to the stand, the 3 kids to the stand, the state's CPS counselor to the stand, as well as the sheriff's deputy to the stand, who all, this is what they do professionally. The sheriff's deputy was the only one who really told the absolute God's honest truth of what his investigation had uncovered. And after the state had put on its case, there was a 10, 15-minute intermission, and then the judge comes back out, and my son's criminal defense attorney made a motion to dismiss for failure to prove a lasting, substantial injury to the children. He also pointed out that the boys, all 3 of them, he observed rather aptly that all 3 boys, one's a 3rd grader, one's a 5th grader, and one is an 8th grader, all having different vocabularies, all having different mental acuities based on their ages and things like that. They all, when they got on the stand, they all used the same vocabulary, too eerily similar to one another, with the recollection of events that they couldn't recall other details, such as what the weather was like that day, what they had for dinner, what color shirt they were wearing, but with great and intense clarity, they were able to recall this choking incident where they all said that Dad had choked Big Brother out and had, angrily taken charge of him and was choking the life out of him. And so while Mom was on the stand, the attorney asked her, he said, have you talked to the kids about coming to court today? And of course, she said that they did. And he said, well, how many times have you talked to the kids? And well, every time we come to court, we talk about it. So what really came out, we believe, is that Mom has implanted these memories in the boys, and she's made mountains out of molehills, and she's really undermining the father's ability to discipline the kids within his own home. And we've not had our bite of the apple yet, but he faces now. The criminal stuff was dismissed, so that's gone. But now we've got to defeat the DVPO come Monday. And the problem, and this is what I was explaining to the attorney, was the court doesn't have subject matter jurisdiction. At least I don't think that they do, because the initial domestic violence protective order was only good for 10 days, and it self-terminated at midnight on the day that he went to court. So it expired, the DVPO expired a full 9.5 hours before he had to stand in front of a judge. And under North Carolina law, or at least as I read it and understand it, if it's going to terminate like that, mom has to go back in and renew it. She failed to do that, but the judge in this case decided, oh, we're just going to continue it anyway. So it's been continued all this time, even though it had already expired. And we believe that it's, I don't think that the court can do that. I don't think that they have the authority to do that once the DVPO has expired. So my question is how can we point out and get the court to acknowledge that they lack subject matter jurisdiction, and will they? And then furthermore, how could we get this removed to Superior Court, or would that even be advisable? Do we go through the stuff at district court level, which is not a court of record, and then appeal it de novo to a court of record, or we just move everything up and then ask for a jury determination, all this? Because we just really, I don't know anything about the judge. The first judge we had was pretty good. I don't know anything about any of the judges out there, what their histories are, what their judicial temperament is, what their political persuasions are, how amenable they are to defendants in the case, whether they side with the state. But we know, or I believe, that all of this is a setup for the eventual termination of my son's parental rights. He only gets to see the boys 2 days out of the month now. Mom did testify that they were in some kind of counseling. So because we don't have access to the boys, we can't go get them to have them medically evaluated or seek a forensic psychologist of our own to truly find out if or what, or to what extent they have any kind of emotional damage, whether there is any differential cause of any emotional stuff. The oldest boy is on, he's on some kind of ADHD medication or something like that. And he's got some tics and things. Mom wants to say that all that's because of dad. Dad says, no, we think that that's because the medication may not be appropriate. So we don't have access to the kids. We can't reach a different diagnosis. We can't even obtain that. And where we're at is we're just, from a procedural posture, I don't know really where we're at in the case, other than that we're facing this and the hurdles, you have with, and Vince knows this, that with every different I'm at a loss for words. Every different proceeding that you have, it has a different level of proof that has to be made. So in criminal, it's like a pole vault. And then once you get to the DVPO level, it's clear and convincing evidence, which I think is like a high jump. And then when it comes to the responsible individuals list, it's just a preponderance of the evidence, which I look at as just trying to clear a hurdle. Who can tip the scales one way or the other by a feather, so and so that the responsible individuals list is coming up as well. And I've got several questions, Vince, and I'm so sorry to keep droning on like this, but my question is, if he clears the criminal stuff, are they stopped by, is this thing stopped, or is because the DVPO, it expired 9.5 hours before the judge decided to continue it, does that terminate and halt everything? And what arguments can we make, or can I tell his attorney to make? Does he have a right to an attorney? He's out of vacation days. We've tried to speak to the judge, and it's a mess. It's a mess. So I'm sorry to burden you with all that. I'm just throwing it out there because it's a mess, and I need somebody to help untangle this Gordian knot that we face.
Did you say Christopher?
Yes, sir.
First of all, I wanted to say something to you, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way. But I can tell that you are consumed by this.
I am.
And that's not good in terms of planning strategies and helping a lawyer and helping your son. I know it's difficult. I can only imagine. I've never been in your position, but I can only imagine. I've represented hundreds, if not thousands, of people in this types of situations over my, career as a lawyer. But that's the first thing that I noticed. And I want to warn you, if you go find an attorney, don't talk for 14 minutes straight without taking a breath.
I'm sorry.
'Cause they're going to think that you're crazy.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
what they're going to think. So you asked me a whole bunch of questions. I never got a chance to answer any of them,
I'm sorry.
but it's okay. No, it's all right. We have an hour or 45 minutes actually left. So we'll get to the questions. The first thing that I thought of, Christopher, is why are you calling me instead of your son?
My son is working. He's got to work in the daytime, and he didn't have the same schedule. So I sent him the link. His fiance's probably looking at the link right now as well. And he's at work. He works. He just works. He works from 5 o'clock in the morning to whatever time it is, and he just couldn't be on here. So that's the only reason he's not calling.
Because you realize he should be calling me.
I do.
Okay. Now, we're going to talk about it because you're the guest, but you're not going to be able to help him.
I know.
You know, things are going to get lost in the translation. You're not the attorney. You know, he's got to have to talk to the attorney to get on the same wavelength, all that kind of stuff. But we'll talk about this because it's a thing that happens a lot, not only in Tennessee, but in California and all over the country. It happens everywhere. And it's unfortunate because it's a way people have found, in this case, apparently from what you tell me, the mother, and she's not on the show, so I can't get her side, but it's a way people have found to manipulate the system.
Right.
Everyone goes to court for answers. The limitation of court is it's court. It's a false reality. The judge wasn't there. Judge doesn't know who's telling the truth. And as I have recently found out in the last year, and I'm more certain of this than ever, is that kids are manipulated, brainwashed, and basically convinced on what to say in court. My daughter is almost 30 years old. When she and my son were about 9 or 10, my wife and I were talking about getting divorced. Okay. She's passed, my son has passed, but at that time, we were talking about getting divorced. And I realized from talking to my kids just in passing that they were 110% on mommy's side. And I realized that they would say and do anything that mommy told them.
Right.
Not that they hated daddy, but they just wanted to please mommy. You know, parent-children relationships are very sophisticated, and we give kids to, for example, in this case, the mother, and just think, oh, she's going to be fair, objective, and she's not going to manipulate and influence the kid. It's not true. Not true. One of the things that I found out and recently in a case a few months ago is that social workers use foster parents to help manipulate the kid's testimony.
Wow.
Now, do you think that ever comes up in court? Nah. We think the kids are just at the foster home being safely taken care of, and nobody talks about the case, and the kids are going to come to court and just spit out the truth. It's not true. And it's much more prevalent than what we suspect. Foster parents are beholden to social workers. That's how they make their living. That's where they get their money from. That's how they get kids. And so, you know, a sharp social worker or experienced social worker knows how to manipulate the foster parent without ever saying it, you know? Here's what we would expect. A social worker tells foster parent, I need you to convince the kids to say ABC. Well, they don't say that. they say other things that keys the foster parent in on letting them know what to tell the child. And, one of the things that I've noticed over my career in doing these CPS cases, so it's over 30 years, social workers have their favorite foster parents. Now I know why. It's not because they're offering great care to the kid. It's because they can get the foster parent on their team, have them manipulate the child, and so forth. I won't tell you where I saw this or heard this, but I heard a tape of a foster parent admitting that they lied for the social worker in a lawsuit against the social worker, and that she was paid a large amount of money to do it.
Wow.
Now, the foster parent may have been lying. I don't know, but it was an odd thing to say. Like, how would that foster parent even know that these issues come up in lawsuits, right? So there are things that go on behind the scenes that you and I will never know about. And in your case, it's not the foster parent, it's the mother. You will never know how it's done, what is said. You'll have telltale signs like you just told me. The kids are all different ages with different education levels and different vocabularies, yet they're all telling the same story using the same jargon and terms. That doesn't happen by accident.
Right.
But that's something that a judge would not necessarily know. Oh, all three of them said the same thing. Must be true. Must be true. Judges are human beings. They don't know you. They don't know the kids. They don't know the mother or the father, but they hear the story and then they have to make a decision. One of the weaknesses of our system is, well, how did the kids get to that story? Is it up to dad's attorney to cross-examine the kids? Are the kids going to tell the truth? Did your mommy tell you what to say? No. Well, of course, mommy didn't tell you what to say. Mommy always talked about it and suggested it, and you just adopted it as your own. Sometimes the kid doesn't even realize that they're being brainwashed. Go back to what I told you about my kids and my wife. You couldn't say that she was brainwashing the kids because her influence over my kids was much more complex and sophisticated. And I told you that they were 8 or 9 or 10 years old. My wife was at home every day with the kids. The relationship that the kids had with my wife, you can't even describe it. Right? I mean, they thought the same thing. It was one of those types of things. I had a close relationship with my kids. Don't get me wrong, but I wasn't there 24/7. So when I asked them, I kind of slyly asked them, and I didn't put it this way, but like, who would you like to live with? It was like without hesitation, mommy.
Sure.
Without hesitation. At 8, 9, 10 years old, you're not sophisticated enough as a kid to understand that you might be manipulated. I hear adults say that they're manipulated, 40, 50, 60-year-olds adults saying that they're manipulated by people. They just didn't realize that at the time it was happening. So you just can't easily defend against something like that. So you're going to have find the attorney. It's going to be kind of a long, involved hearing to get to the bottom or try to drill down. The longer the hearing, the more expensive it is, right, for you and your son, assuming you're helping him. Will the judge even have time or make time to to listen to the story, to let you drill down? I don't know. Typically in DV cases in California, they go pretty fast, right? It's, hey, did it happen or didn't it happen? That's all I want to know. And it seems to me that sometimes nobody's interested in, well, why are you saying it happened? And then if you ask a kid that, does the kid even know why he's saying that? No, he's not that old, not that sophisticated enough. Heaven forbid they put an adult on the stand that's been manipulated. They're not going to know why. It's much, much more complex. Hey, you're probably old enough to remember this, but do you remember a woman, a multi-million-dollar heiress called, her name was Patty Hearst? They made a movie about her.
Maybe.
The Hearst Castle.
She was the granddaughter of one of the richest men in the world, and she was kidnapped by the Symbionese Liberation Army, which I believe was the offshoot of the Black Panther Party. And she was kidnapped, and the next thing you see of her, she's in a bank with them holding either a shotgun or a machine gun, robbing a bank. There's something called the Stockholm Syndrome, right?
Right.
Anybody can be brainwashed. Anybody. And you can do it by negative and positive means. So imagine what your grandchildren are going through being placed with their mother.
She's not a bad mom. I think that she's a good mom, but she's super protective of them. And the concern is that she's trying to raise them to coexist with Barney the dinosaur in the land of make-believe. And my son recognizes that the world we live in is really more akin to Jurassic Park. And his job as a dad is not necessarily to be their buddy, but to be their father and to help guide them and lead them and to transform them from little boys into men. And it's going to be, the transition's different for each boy at different stages of their life. So the discipline's got to be different. But we know that there's a disconnect between what mom thinks appropriate discipline is and what dad thinks appropriate discipline is. And what right does a father have and what's in the best interest of the child? Where does that, if he's not harming them and causing misdemeanor type stuff that's going to get him taken away, what's the standard? Everything seems squishy when it comes to the terms of what constitutes best interest of the child. Where do those standards get laid down, and why is it determined by a single judge rather than a jury?
Okay, here I'm going to answer those questions because those are really good questions. Unfortunately, they show me that you are new to this area of law.
Yes, very.
Okay. And you're about to start a journey like Darren Gwise started a journey.
New screen.
And your journey is going to be one of knowledge and learning, and you're going to be shocked at what you learn.
I'm already shocked.
Yeah.
By what I'm learning.
Best interest, by definition in California, probably in your state, is as squishy as it gets, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? It's different with every judge.
Yep.
So there's no stop on red, go on green. It's, let me think about that. What do I feel or think about it? So if you're looking for definiteness and definite rules, you're in the wrong place. It doesn't exist in the family law courtroom. Doesn't.
Well,
why
my concern is that he only sees them 2 days out of the month now. And mom's trying to say that because of that limited exposure, that dad is so toxic to them that they have all these other, declining school grades and other things because of their brief exposure to him. And I would think that it's ludicrous to make that kind of thing. And it would be unconscionable to me for a court to reach in and deprive him and take the kids away from him just on that type of stuff without anything. But, I'm really concerned if as I look around and I see we can't tell whether boys are boys and girls are girls, or all the craziness that's in the world today and all the legislation that's being passed out in California just a few days ago. Didn't they pass a thing that said that if you don't affirm your kid's gender or something like that, they become.
I just talked about that.
That's exactly right. Maybe it may have been you that I was watching
Yeah.
about that from, and it's just like that. It does alarm me. It really does scare me. So yes, I am very passionate about this. I am very concerned for my grandsons, and I feel like I got a reason to be, because it's for you guys. Well, these are three nameless, faceless kids, but for me, they're my grandkids. They're the seat of my loins, and they're everything to me. So the stakes for me are very high, and it's not something that we can afford to lose. And I do think that mom is a good mom. I mean, I know that she loves the boys. There's no question about that. But I don't think that she fully understands the lasting impact that her communication with the boys and her undermining of dad's authority in his own home to discipline them and to help direct them and guide them, how that is going to have a negative impact on them. If dad's taken out of their lives and isn't allowed to use his salutary sway to help reform the incorrigible youth and to make them productive citizens of North Carolina, then the judge is going to have to be their daddy for the next 40 years of their life. So I'm concerned. I'm just concerned. I'm a grandpa that's.
Christopher, I want you to listen to this, okay? Listen to this.
Sure.
Darren.
Yes, sir.
Talk to Christopher, because he is telling us concerns that are legitimate. No doubt. No doubt. I understand what he's saying.
As do I.
Now tell him what you found in our judicial system.
So, unfortunately, first of all, your son's criminal matters doesn't matter. They don't care. They don't care that he was unfounded. They've already moved on in their heads from this. They're on to the fact that your son now has allegedly caused harm to them. You know just as well as I do, it probably never happened. They don't care. Their deal is talking with the mother. Your son's going to have to go through a massive amount. He's a war veteran. So you would think in a court in America that they would hold that to the highest regard, as he should be. As you said, he's decorated. But what you need to prepare yourself for, sir, is they are going to onslaught him for the damage that he's succumbed, for the combat that he's been in. They're going to try to drag him through places that you don't want to see. All of the things that you think matter and should matter, they're irrelevant. The laws don't work the way that they're supposed to work. They can come and take a kid out of your house for a dirty dish in America. That's a fact. So everything that you think you've learned up till this point, forget about it and start your adventure at zero, because what you know is going to be wrong.
Oh, I know.
And I'm only saying that firsthand. I've learned this. So
that's why
no
I'm here. I'm trying to get some direction on what do we have to do to try to stem it, because right now we feel like a boxer that's been forced into the corner, blocking.
Yeah. Well, you are.
We need to know how to counterpunch whenever we get the chance to do that. And,
let me tell you,
I can anticipate everything that you're saying. I have a very bleak outlook on how courts, I don't have an idealistic view on what court's supposed to be like. I know what should be, but I know what in actuality it really is. And that's why I'm trying to stop the train, because I see they've got my son hogtied on train tracks with a 40-car banana train bearing down on him, and I'm doing whatever I can to try to either swing the train onto another track or to rescue my son from being slaughtered on the track.
Okay, so you are going in the right direction. But you're missing one important piece.
Your son.
No.
Attorney.
Right.
I know. And that's why I'm needing to talk to, is it Mike or Mark? What'd you say his name was?
Mike.
And I got one for you right here. There's this guy. I've been researching these guys this whole time that we've been on here. This guy here looks like he's pretty, he's got family law experience. He's all about the domestic violence stuff. I don't know if you know him, Mr. Davis, or not.
Is this the person you put in the chat? Private
Yeah, I
chat?
just put him in here. Yeah.
Okay, I'm
He
going to
does.
post his link. I don't know
Okay.
him, but I'll
Okay.
post his link. Darren just found him doing some internet research on Google or something. But it's a
Yeah.
place to start. It's a
Mhm.
place to start. I don't know. I know one attorney in North Carolina. I know one attorney in Tennessee. Where is your case in Tennessee?
I'm in Tennessee. My son's in North Carolina. It's in Lincoln County. So my son lives in the same county that Mike Bart lives in. And it's the next
Okay.
county over who has jurisdiction over the children.
Well, you might want to talk to Air Force Mike and see if he can make any recommendations, because I only know one attorney in North Carolina, and he's in Greensboro.
Let me get a hold of Mike right now. I'll get his phone number.
Yeah.
So
Let me get his
He's
phone
on the
number.
show watching.
Oh yeah, Mike. Why don't you text me his phone number and then I'll put it in the private chat for him, bud.
I have his phone number if you want me to put it in the private chat.
Oh, then you put it in the chat.
Okay, he gave it to me last night.
hey, Christopher, do you know how to look at the private chat?
Yeah, I'm see it over here on the side of my screen right now.
Okay. So Deidre's going to put Mike's number in the private chat, and you can give him a call.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have
So
a
this
question
guy.
for Mike. I mean, for Chris, sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
I know Mr. Davis usually asks this, and he hasn't yet, but I'm just curious. Do you know exactly where your son is as far as, like, what is his next court date, or where is he as far as, which
Monday.
is his next year? I
Monday.
know, but what is the hearing for?
It's
6 months, 12 months, or?
It's the domestic violence protective order. It's supposed to be that, DVPOs are ex parte matters, and you're supposed to have an ex parte hearing. The wife, the mother goes in, gets the DVPO ex parte. Then within 7 to 10 days, there's supposed to be an emergency hearing to find out whether that actually is good or not. That has been continued for 10 months now. So for 10 months, my son has not had access to the kids. He cannot, yes, he cannot talk to them. He cannot see them. The attorney for Children's Services will not let Children's Services talk to him. There's been no arrangement for modification, no arrangement for.
I thought you said he sees them twice a week, though, no? Or twice a month?
What's that? He's
2 days
supposed.
a month.
There was a
Yeah.
consent order. Him and his wife got divorced 3 years ago. Okay. She made allegations of abuse then to get him out of the marital home. He walked away, said, okay, fine, whatever. He did not abuse his wife, never has. And he's not been a perfect husband, not been a perfect dad, but he does not, if he had abused any of them, I would have killed him myself. Okay. I get off and ask her dad to help me bury the body because
Right.
I love my grandkids that much. I love her that much, but they divorced, no problem. But since then, they entered into a consent agreement where he pays like $1,200 a month. She has primary custody. He sees them every other weekend. He's supposed to get them for 2 days, but in reality, he only gets them for 1 day out of each weekend because he has to make sure that they go back and are able to get their homework done, because that doesn't happen before they come to visit him. So
I'm a little confused. Do you not have a CPS case, or you do?
well, we think that we do. We're not sure. We just know that she filed a DVPO. He has not seen the kids for 10 months.
And that's only because the wife is keeping the kids from him?
She's made the allegations. The children were taken out on the hearsay allegations. She never swore to anything. The judge could not have found probable cause because there's no jurat. There's just the judge's signature on there, but there's no evidence that she's ever raised her right hand to swear that any of those allegations are true. But the judge found the thing. Whether he heard this in chambers, we don't know. But there's nothing within the four corners of the document that should have given him the ability to do that. And even if that were the case, that hearing on that DVPO should have happened within 7 to 10 days. There's a statutory guideline that says that has to be heard before it terminates. That didn't happen. It terminated 9.5 hours before he went back in to stand in front of the judge. So when he goes back in to stand in front of the judge continued the matter. Then he was able to go out and get an attorney, and his attorney has sold him under the bus and went in and continued to get continuance after continuance after continuance, racking up legal fees, depleting my son's reserve of cash that he had to help defend himself with. And Then the state stepped in and picked up criminal charges on him. And so there's 2 cases, a civil and a criminal case against him running parallel with one another. And the way that they were trying to stack these things were that he would get a conviction on the criminal stuff, and then immediately behind that would be the civil stuff to try to terminate his parental rights and then hand everything over to mom and her new boyfriend, who's presumably going to try to adopt the kids. We don't know.
But I also think in California, if they terminate, they can't terminate one parent's rights if they didn't terminate the other. I mean, that's, I think, how it is in California. So I don't necessarily think that he would probably get his rights terminated if the mom still has her rights.
No. Hold on.
Oh.
Okay. The rule that you just stated is in a CPS case. He doesn't have a CPS case. And in California, you can file a petition to terminate one parent's rights. And what typically happens is we file a petition to terminate the father's rights because of many different reasons, one of them being abuse or felony conviction or not visiting or not paying support. And then the new husband comes in and does the step-parent adoption.
Right.
Okay.
So you can do that, but in a CPS case, you can't terminate one without the other. But he's not in a CPS case.
Yeah. Okay.
That's part of the problem is I'm not 100% sure where we're at. I just know that this DVPO expired before this whole matter has continued. We're past.
Yeah, but yes, Chris, you're focusing on the wrong thing.
Okay.
It's not an important issue because you're missing several pieces of the analysis. Either by agreement, if you were in California, either by agreement, implicit or expressly, your son has waived the time periods.
How?
Because he didn't object.
Yeah.
He did object. He's objected from the very beginning. And the court did not, that's what I'm saying, is the court didn't have jurisdiction after the DVPO was issued. It expired. It just terminated. So under North Carolina law, and I've got the appellate case stuff on this that I can hand to an attorney because I've done the research on this. I'm not an attorney, but I do study law, and there may be other precedents that are out there that overturn this that I've not been able to find yet. But under North Carolina law, the appellate court rulings that I've seen said that once that DVPO expires, the court loses jurisdiction over the matter unless some other new process is started, and he has to receive notification and all that of it. And I don't believe that that's happened yet. So the CPS is trying to put him on this responsible individual list. They're trying to enforce this DVPO, and that's what we're trying to figure out is the DVPO still in effect? If it's expired, did the court have jurisdiction to continue it after it had already expired 9.5 hours prior?
So CPS is involved then, because you just said CPS is trying to push us, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're involved in this.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
All right.
Involved.
Okay.
Who's Deanna?
What's that?
Somebody named Deanna just said that he does have a CPS case. It's for responsible.
That's my son's fiance.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Oh, so he does have a CPS.
Okay.
Right.
And it sounds like there's a whole morass of civil and procedural things that are going on in the CPS case that you're not aware of, Chris. Mike.
Right. And because everything is guarded, we can't find out. Nobody will tell us.
Mr. Davis, you're in my house.
Nobody will tell us what's really going on. We can't find out.
Well, your son can find out, and so can his attorney.
They're saying that they won't talk to my son. They're saying that he has to have an attorney. They will not give him discovery. They will not talk to him. They will not disclose any records to him.
Okay.
That's what Melissa said from North Carolina the other day, remember? I think Melissa said that.
So hold on a second. Hold on. Assuming that's true, does he have a CPS attorney? Yes or no, or I don't know?
He does not have a CPS attorney that's been assigned to him yet, and that's what we're trying to get. And we're trying to get transparency to get somebody to tell us even where we're at, procedurally, posturally, however you want to say it.
Okay, you're not going to be able to figure that out. No one's going to tell you, not the social worker, not the judge. You got to get an attorney to review the court file and tell you. Period.
Is he entitled to court-appointed attorney, or does he have to get his own?
I don't
Remember,
know.
Melissa said no. Melissa that was on the show the other day. Remember? She's from
I
North
don't-
Carolina.
Christopher,
No, she's from Alabama, but
Christopher,
Oh.
I don't know. If you were in California, he would be entitled to a free attorney. He might have to pay the state or the county back for the attorney, but he's entitled to that attorney. Now, I thought that was the rule across the country. There was someone on a show the other night who said in North Carolina, that's not true. Okay, so I don't know. I did a case in Greensboro, and that was never an issue because my client hired me and a local attorney, and the only other attorney in the case was the attorney for the social worker. Oh, and there was an attorney for the minor. But so that issue just never came up. So I don't know the answer to that. But I bet if you start calling attorneys in North Carolina, in that city or in that county, you'll be able to find someone who's going to be answering that question for you.
So here's the next wrinkle in the hitch and a giddy up is mom has appointed herself or has had the judge appoint her guardian ad litem for the kids. Now, I thought the guardian ad litem had to be an attorney and needed to be a neutral and detached third party that didn't really have a dog in the fight and could actually look out for the best interest of the children. I have a problem with mom's appointment simply because for the same reason I'd have a problem with my son's appointment. They have a prejudicial bias and a pecuniary interest in the outcome. So if there's going to be a guardian ad litem, I would think that would need to be a neutral and detached third party attorney that would truly look out for the best interest of the kids. How mom has got this, I don't know. Is it appropriate? I don't think so, but I don't know who to bring it up to. Why wouldn't the judge sua sponte recognize that and say, no, mom can't be guardian ad litem. We need to appoint somebody else.
Okay. Christopher.
I'm trying to calm down. I promise, Vince. I'm hearing you. I love you, dude. I hear you. I do.
You know, you're coming across with some very good questions, but none of them have anything to do with you winning this case or your son winning this case. If the judge appointed the mom guardian ad litem, that's it. You're going to spend some more money and get an appellate attorney to challenge that? Okay, go right ahead. You don't even have an attorney to help represent your son in the case yet. Who cares who's the guardian ad litem? And by the way, I don't know what guardian ad litem means in your state. It means something different in every state.
Really?
Yeah, in some states, the guardian ad litem is the attorney for the client, for the minors. In states like California, they're totally separate. There's a minor's attorney, and then sometimes there can be a GAL. And then there's another type of guardian ad litem, a person who represents the kid because the kid is underage, and they can't appear in court without a guardian ad litem. So I can't really comment on the North Carolina law, but again, that's something that you'll find out from the attorney. You got a lot of good questions. They're just not focused on what you need to do to win or what your son needs to do to win.
Well, my problem is I'm just kind of lost in the swamp and not
really
knowing. Yeah. I mean, hey,
well, here's the thing.
I know,
Mr.
man. I'm smart enough to know that I'm lost, and I'm smart enough to know what I don't know.
Good dude there.
Okay.
Well, that's why I asked you if your son knew where he was at, like Mr. Davis usually says, because he might be even more lost.
Christopher, how much time have you spent up so far on researching everything?
2 weeks, maybe week and a half, 2 weeks.
That's it? It seems like a lot more.
Okay, but how many hours is that? Is that 80 weeks? Is it, 150 hours? 80 hours?
I'm pretty sure that I've got at least 80 hours of just research, but I personally can't afford to go hire my own attorney to give me advice so that I can tell my son we're trying to get an attorney. But here's the problem, and in all due respect, Vince, I don't like attorneys. I don't trust attorneys. Now, I would trust. I would hire you in a heartbeat because you are transparent enough to be able to come on and explain things. The attorneys that I've run into, I've had some good attorneys. I'm not lumping all of them into this, But if we burn all attorneys, it wouldn't be a big loss to me.
What does Shakespeare say? Kill all the attorneys.
Kill all the attorneys. Yeah, right. So, you know,
But Mike,
I see a lot of attorneys that are real bold. They're bold as a lion in their own office, but then they turn into church mice whenever they actually get in front of a judge.
Right.
And
Facts.
Here's the deal, Christopher. If a doctor told you
Here we go.
you need open heart surgery,
Would you go home and Google it?
What are you gonna do?
I want the best doctor that's out there, sparing no expense, but at the same time, I'm going to do my own research so that I know that
You're not going to go home and perform open heart surgery on yourself.
I'm not going to perform open heart surgery on myself, but I'm going to know enough about the condition.
Christopher, you just said something very interesting to me. You said you would want the best, sparing no expense.
Yep.
Well, are your grandkids worth that?
Yes, they are.
Because this is the death penalty, man.
Oh, I know. It's a civil death penalty now.
Have you found the best attorney in North Carolina? Sparing no.
You are speaking to him.
No.
Because
I'm talking about in North Carolina.
Because I don't know the attorneys in North Carolina. And
Okay.
even in my own state, I don't know. The attorneys specialize in different things. And there's a mixed breed of attorneys in every state. You have some that barely pass the bar. Then you get some that passed with flying colors, but they're all licensed.
Mr. D, he's got to get a hold of Connie. And I'll bet Connie would be able to lead him in the right direction for what he needs to do as a grandparent.
I agree. Do you know Connie Reguli?
Me? No.
I don't know how you couldn't know her being in Tennessee.
I've never heard of.
Connie is a lawyer back in Tennessee.
Then I need one that's practicing in North Carolina, not Tennessee.
Okay, but what you need to do is call her and get a referral.
Oh, okay.
See, I'm in California. I'm in LA.
Right. Yeah, I understand.
I can't tell you about North Carolina.
Connie is the guru.
Let's just say that she's so hard on family side that she no longer is allowed to practice law because they got rid of her.
Oh, she's not a lawyer?
No, she can't practice right now because of the felony that she's still fighting. You didn't know that?
I thought she won the appeal.
Last time she was on the seminar, she had said that she was still waiting for that. I thought.
Either way, you should still talk to Connie.
I would bet $1 she'll have a couple of names to refer to.
Yeah, of course.
And you should be calling them and you should be talking to them. In the next 40 hours on this case, you should be researching attorneys in North Carolina for your son.
We will be. And you think Mike would know?
Yeah, I'm sure he might. He might know. He might know. But here's the other thing, Christopher. I want to tell you this. You know, I've represented a lot of people over my years, and there was a time that I was representing a lot of sailors and Marines from San Diego. One of your son's predicaments is he's a good Marine.
But that's also a double-edged sword.
Right, because when he gets out into the regular world, people don't think like him, and honor to him is paramount. It's not paramount in the outside world. I don't know if you've noticed that. So he's got to have some flexibility.
He doesn't expect the children to worship him. He's not expecting instant.
No, I'm not saying that. Look, I was raised by a guy who was an career Army guy.
Right.
Okay. And I can tell you right now that if they were enforcing or had the laws that they'd have now, he would have been put in jail. It's a good thing that he did discipline me because I would have ended up either dead or in jail. And I think that, I've told this story. Let me tell you this story, okay? Maybe 20 years ago, I represented this guy in juvenile and CPS court. He was a sergeant major in the Army. And his kids were brought in, 2 teenage boys, because they were on the verge of joining a local gang in his area. Okay. And the sergeant major wasn't having it. And his method of discipline was physical discipline. The kids went to school, told the teacher, social worker got involved, took the kids away. And during the trial of that case, the middle of the trial, something was said about the father's use of physical discipline, which, by the way, is not illegal in California. He stood up and he walked out of the courtroom right in the middle of trial. And as he walked out, he turned around and he said to the judge, "If you think you can do a better job, you keep them and raise them." And he walked out.
Wow.
Now, at the time, and they still do this, cases in California are reviewed every 6 months. And every 6 months, the report would come back. Father hadn't visited, and the kids were getting worse and worse. And then at about the 18th month hearing, the judge says to me, "Have you had contact with your client?" "No, Your Honor." He's basically washed his hands of this. He says, "Well, I'm ordering you to tell him he's ordered to be in court." I said, "Well, I don't know where he lives. He may have moved, blah, blah, blah. I haven't talked to him since he walked out of court that day." He says, "Find him. There's an Army locator." I didn't know this at the time, but if you're in the service, there's something, it's now on the internet. Back then it was, a telephone 800 number. You can locate anyone in the service, where they're stationed or where they're living. So I called the locator, and he still had the same address and everything. So I contacted him, and I had said, "Hi, Sergeant Major, this is your attorney, Vince Davis from Monterey Park, the Children's Court." He goes, "What's going on?" I said, "Well, the judge says you have to be in court on such and such a date." He says, "Well, I don't have anything to do with that case anymore." I said, "I know, but I told the judge, and he said you must be ordered to be present." He said, "Okay, I'll be there." So on that day, he comes to court. And when we call the case, the kids are being brought into the courtroom. Now, they haven't seen their dad in months, no holidays, no nothing. And the most recent report says that the kids are now 2 full-fledged gang members selling drugs in one of the neighborhood parks. Full-fledged gang members. And the judge says to the kids, who are in their gang colors and, everything, he says, "Kids, I got good news for you and I got bad news for you." This was a very pragmatic judge, by the way, who himself was an Army veteran. He says, "I got good news and bad news." And one of the kids says, "Well, what's the bad news?" And the judge says, "Oh, you're going home to your father today."
Oh, no.
And the other kid said, "Well, what's the good news?"
You're
He says,
going
"Oh,
home.
you're going home to your father today." The prosecuting attorney for the social worker jumps up, very experienced and well-respected county counsel. She's retired now. And she's objecting to all of this. Like, how can you send these poor kids home? Blah, 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 blah. Judge said, "Look, I made my orders. Sergeant Major, can you handle it?" Kind of like an Army kind of thing. "Can you handle the assignment, Sergeant?" Sergeant Major says, "Yes, sir." He says, "We'll go downstairs and pick them up from shelter care where they held the kids that came to court." So he leaves, the kids are taken out, and the social worker's attorney says, "You know what?" And she calls out the judge's first name, which I won't repeat, but just say it's John. "You know what, John? I'm going to have to write this up and we might appeal and blah, blah, blah. Why did you do that?" He says, "Oh, I did that because I wanted to make sure that the sergeant major straightened them out before one day they robbed me on the street."
Good point.
Or they killed themselves or each other in the gang.
So we come back in 6 months, no more gang problem,
Yeah.
no more drug selling. I wonder why. Case closed. Sergeant Major, is taking care of the kids. He's taking care of them, giving them the discipline and the instruction that they need. Not that they wanted it, but that they need it. Okay. Now, those two kids were heading for either an early death or state prison.
Yeah.
Easily. So sometimes things have to get really, really bad before we recognize what we should have done as far as discipline with kids. And I'm not saying I'm not a proponent of physical violence, but sometimes physical discipline, which is legal in California at least, sometimes it's needed. You have no idea how these kids can get out of control.
Right.
I'll tell you something, and I haven't shared this with anyone. My son died of a drug overdose at 27.
Sorry to hear that.
My wife, my then wife, and God bless her, she passed away as well, wouldn't allow physical discipline.
Do you think if you were allowed physical discipline, your son would still be here?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Now, I may be wrong. But that you asked me what I think.
Yeah.
Kids need their dads as much as they need their moms.
Look, and I'm not saying that was the only problem. There were other issues in our relationship. You know, I was working too much, you know, not at home all the time. There were other issues. But yeah, that's what I think. Because I know how I was raised and how I was, could have gone the wrong way very easily. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles. I lived 4 doors down from, at the time, which was one of the biggest crack houses and drug dealer camp in Canton that there was at the time. Have you ever heard of the battering ram? LAPD battering ram? It was a light armored vehicle with a long metal thing on it. And they could break into things, break into houses, break into compounds that were heavily fortified. Well, they developed the battering ram for my neighborhood.
Wow. Jurassic Park, just like I said.
Yes, sir.
So, you know, sometimes that it's needed. And unfortunately, Christopher, people don't realize it until it's too late.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Or nowadays, I feel like kids can just say the simplest thing at school to think that they're going to get away from, you know, their parents using physical harm. And then we all then know what happens when that whole can of worms opens and, you know, they're taken away. And then the kids themselves maybe realize that what they did was the wrong thing too late, you know, and then the parents have lost their rights.
Right.
Or they're now
Absolutely.
getting abused by foster parents that they can't, you know, get themselves out of because they're just so completely stuck in this horrible corruption of, you know, people that are supposed to be protecting children when they're just doing the opposite.
And I'm posting another link that Darren found for us. Darren, is this something about child protective service attorneys?
Yeah, that's a list of a bunch of top CPS lawyers in North Carolina.
Okay.
Good.
In that Gastonia area. But you can go there.
Well, Christopher, we're way over time this morning.
I'm so sorry. You got other callers, other people trying to get in as guests, and I can't tell you how much.
No. Just you, pal.
I have to pick up food for my grandson's 1 year birthday.
I never knew you had a grandson.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Davis.
Miss Payne, there's a lot you don't know about me.
Well, I've been learning and I obviously have been keeping notes. Don't you know?
So I gotta take a quick shower and get on the road and take care of that.
But Chris, you got Mike's number and everything from up here, right?
I put it in the chat. Did you get it?
Yeah.
Yeah, got it.
That's what I was asking.
Okay.
Making sure you got all that information.
Yeah, I do. And I really appreciate it, guys. We will take all of this.
Keep us updated. come
We
back
will.
again and let us know.
Mr. Vince, thank you very much for your counsel, sir. I really appreciate it. And like I said, I really appreciate the service that you guys have to the public with this show. And I will be following you. I've already liked your channel and will continue to follow and watch and chime in from time to time. And we'll keep you up to date. But it's
The next
important.
seminar.
Yeah.
Make sure that everyone likes and subscribes.
I've already sent it out to my kids and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're going to try and bring some more traffic you guys' way. We really appreciate it. And
Christopher, I wanted to tell you, we have other shows on this channel. As a
Really?
matter of fact, Darren and Mike do a show together.
I saw that one last
And
night.
I do a show.
Deidre does a show. So check those out.
Are all of them on the same feed?
Platform.
Same platform?
Yes. Yes.
Same channel.
Very good. Yeah.
If you go under your notifications under YouTube right now and you click that you want you to be notified, then you'll get a notification every time one of the shows comes on.
On all of them.
You just click it right now, and then whenever a show comes on his platform, you will be notified. Like when what is her name that does Beautifully Bruised in the CPS show? What is her name? Latrika Jones.
Okay.
She does one too. And so Monday, Wednesday, Friday when hers comes on, you'll get a notification and so forth.
Mr. Vince, I'm gonna make another suggestion to you. I don't know if you're amenable to this or not, but you might want to start putting together, if you've not already done so, and you're smart enough, I'm sure that you probably already have, but put together a network of attorneys in different states that you know that you've vetted and you know that they're
the Rolodex
and that they've got what it takes to actually go in and help parents in some of these CPS cases.
Right. We started that project about 5 years ago. It's called the CPS Rolodex.
Rolodex, yeah, I was going to say.
CPSRolodex.com. And Cynthia Becker, who's one of our other hosts, she hosts a show called
The Horror Stories.
Yeah, CPS, The Horror Stories. Anyway, she was working on that. Then she left and came back. And when she came back, we never picked that up again. So that's something that we should probably do.
But he does those seminars that have all the attorneys from different states that you've done now.
First Saturdays of every month, Mike, we do a seminar. It's usually all day. And I have maybe 6 or 7 different attorneys from different states usually come on and do a presentation.
That's online?
Yeah, it's online.
Okay.
Very much knowledgeable.
As a matter of fact, sometimes when you watch this show, it'll be, see that ticker that's going across the screen?
Yes.
There'll be a ticker advertising the seminar. So take a look at that. Okay? All right, folks, I got to go.
Thank you, sir.
Happy birthday to your grandson.
All right, see everyone tomorrow at 7 p.m.
Keep up
7 p.m.? No, 9 a.m. 9 a.m. tomorrow.
Oh, is today Sunday? No, today's Saturday.
Today's Saturday.
9 a.m. tomorrow, Sunday morning. All righty. Bye-bye.
Chris,
Bye.
good luck, man.
All right. Good going, guys.